afternoon, everybody, and welcome to my Blab this week. As you'll see from the title, we're talking about branding 360, sort of all-around view of branding and how that plays out in your business and your brand. And today we're going to talk about the customer journey. I feel that this is a really important part of the brand experience. It's something that all too often is overlooked or probably not given due consideration by businesses when they start broadcasting messages out there. So we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail, talk about various touch points that there are, the sort of preparation and internal structures that need to be in place within a business before you even begin letting people start walk down the path to getting involved with your brand, and the many ways that you can influence that journey and make it engaging and make it interesting for your customers, so that they have an enjoyable, a good experience, something that they're going to want to tell their friends about, and that they'll come back for more. Hopefully, that's the ultimate with this, is that they have a good experience and want some more. So if there's anybody out there that would like to come and get in one of the seats today and get involved with this discussion, that would be great. Failing that, I will be happy to accept questions on the text feed as well, and we'll just see where it goes from there. I know that Nick's trying to get in at the moment. He's having some technical issues. Here we go.
We are brilliant.
Good afternoon, Nick.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm well, and you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good.
Good.
Looking forward to talking about some marketing.
Branding. Yeah, branding. Yeah, and all sorts of exciting things on the customer journey. So I think it's something that I come across all the time when you're discussing these sorts of projects with people, is that they appreciate they need to reach out and they need to have a plan in place for talking to the customers, but they seldom have one. Mm-hmm. It tends to be that it's done very scattergun, very ad hoc in a lot of instances. And as a result, there are some negative sort of impressions that people can get along the way when things don't necessarily marry up. I think a lot of the time that's because internally people aren't prepped and don't understand about the many different sort of public faces of the business, especially today. With everything being online, there isn't really a business out there that can survive without an online presence, and dealing with and responding to how that manifests itself requires a lot of planning and a lot of thought. So what would you say?
My experience of that is working with kind of big companies, small companies, is that even the big ones get it wrong as well. Okay, so you've got big companies, big corporate companies, and kind of SMEs that simply have no idea about what their kind of strategy is, their branding, and especially when you're talking about going online. With the social media side of things. I worked for a company that was in the education sector. They were the market leader in the UK for the products that they produce. Mm-hmm. And we started doing some social media stuff. We were doing email newsletters. We were doing all kinds of other stuff. And before you know it, you had various different people in the sales office all starting to tweet and respond on Facebook to questions to the company. And we basically had to call everyone into a big room, just say, look, stop, you can't do this. What we've got to do is have a uniform response and a kind of a uniform social profile, if you like. These are the things that you can get engaged with. These are the things you really shouldn't, unless you speak to someone such as myself or one of the other guys there. So, that was a real kind of reining in task where you had all of a sudden this torrent of information and questions being answered, and it's like suddenly it's out of your control. So I think for smaller businesses it's a challenge as well, but the bigger businesses and the bigger corporate businesses also aren't getting it necessarily right, or don't get it right in the first place. So
Yeah, I agree. There's different hurdles for all different sizes of companies around these things, but the consistency is something that all too often drops by the wayside very early on, particularly in bigger stuff. Ironically, that's something that the small guys can do and can control really, really well. Yeah. They understand tone of voice because it's a small, tight-knit team. It's when you've got bigger organisations, lots of people involved. They all have their own slightly different take on what it is that's sort of the actual brand values and the tone of voice, for that matter. Because tone of voice is a really, really good point that you make there about that kind of consistency. And when it starts to be diluted, it's the beginning of a bad experience, unfortunately.
Well, you can imagine when you've got a company where you've got a sales team. I mean, this particular company I'm talking about had a sales team and a customer service team of 10 or 15 people who are regularly in contact with customers. Now, in some instances, they not build relationships, but they connect with some of those customers online. That happens. That naturally happens. And you will have, conversations going on about the company and about the products and about the service that a particular school's got. So it's monitoring all of that stuff and actually saying to all of the people in the organization that are at that front line to say, look, okay, this is, don't withdraw from that. That's fine. Do that. It's important you maintain that kind of contact and relationship. But what you need to be aware of is that you're working within a large company with a reputation, and we need to just be uniform in our responses. Be natural, of course, but be uniform. And if there's anything you're unsure about, refer it. If it starts getting into some kind of conversation about price, or it's something that is out of your control, just refer it. But the key thing with this stuff is you can't hide things. You have to. If a question is asked, the last thing you do is get rid of it, because that's the kiss of death. You have to always be totally open with that stuff.
What I would say on that point as well about sort of being totally open about responses is not to sort of knee-jerk and go social being what it is. People think they're going to jump straight back at it. Oh gosh, somebody's complained about this. We'll come straight back with a response. It's often better to just take 5 and take stock of the situation, find out more about the background, find out exactly what has or hasn't gone on. And then you can go back with something that's better informed and is going to address it. I mean, there's a great example that I've heard shared of a guy that delivers a lot of online training. And they had a piece of negative response left by one of their sort of users of the software package, saying that they were disappointed in this, that, and the other. He left it about an hour and a half, and then went back with a very thorough response saying how glad he was that they had brought this to his attention, and that it would mean that he could make sure this didn't happen again in the future. And it actually, the response that then came back subsequently to that was really, really positive. And that particular user then waxed lyrical about how they would be telling other people how good they were and how they listened and how responsive they were. So that whole business of truth and just taking the time to do something that's thought through rather than just jumping about really, really resonates, I think.
That's
Go on, next one.
I was just going to say that's the right way to do it. That is the right way to respond, and the right way to. At the end of the day, if you get a phone call or an email that's private, it's within the organisation. Really, you shouldn't be going, well, blah 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 blah, straight back to that, or talking down the phone and say, we'll look into the situation, we'll come back to you, we'll talk to some people. That's the way it goes. And again, in a different company that I worked in, which was in the leisure industry, basically there were comments put on Twitter. There was this one particular comment that was put on Twitter. No, actually, it was Facebook. And the guys within the organisation, which I respect, one particular guy who I worked with, which I respect a lot, actually said, look, this is quite a serious thing this person's saying. They spent a whole day talking about this and how to respond, how to deal with it, not just, knee jerk, etc. It's like, okay, let's have a look at it. Let's look into this. It wasn't an allegation. It was just a criticism. Let's look into it. Let's see what we can do. Let's go back to the person that's made this comment. And I really respected that kind of, that approach to something which is so easy just to go bang and you just do this. And of course, in big organizations or even in small businesses, you can't risk that your reputation by doing that kind of knee-jerk response. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, very much. I think all too often, some brands or businesses, however you want to call it, they lose sight of the external image that's been put out there through the various messaging, and then the reality of how a customer interacts and what is that journey. Because, you know, there is this discourse often, and that's one of the kind of key points I think around this, is making sure that internally you know and you understand really how the customers want to use your product or navigate through it. Because as much as there may be a preferential way for you as a business for them to interact with and purchase from you, you'll often find customers do it slightly differently. And so you have to be responsive to that and take it on board and learn things about how you can improve what you have to deliver at the different points along the journey, so that, you know, you're addressing people's needs as and when they have them, really. I see we have a few people who've joined in us this afternoon. Is there anybody who has any burning questions that they would like to ask, or something they'd like to?
Hawkins on the list.
Yeah, something that they'd like to sort of throw our way in terms of.
Just while you're doing that, Andy, just the thing about the user kind of design and then the user experience. I've seen some great pictures. I don't know if you've seen them on Facebook, where you've got the council builds a path that goes that way, and then you've got this mud path that goes the other way, and it's a shorter distance. And you just think, you know, those are the kind of challenges that you face in doing those things.
I think that's a brilliant.
Have an idea about, you know.
That's a great visual reference, Nick, that you've given there. You seem to have gone all digital on us, but I think that what you're talking about there, where people put particular routes around buildings, and then when people use those routes, they're done slightly differently, and that's the important piece of listening that I think that you're talking about there along the way. So I think it's really important that you do that. So the customer journey with brands, externally, often customers have one perception of a brand, and then when it comes to the actual buying and purchasing, the reality doesn't always live up to what's been broadcast out as the message. So this is what we're talking about this afternoon, and the importance around this. And good afternoon, Anne. You're coming to join us.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. You?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Very good, Andy. Have you lost Nick?
We seem to have, yeah. He's on his way back in. Here he comes.
No, so I do apologise about that. I'm back now.
So, you must have some good case studies or examples that you could share with us around this.
I really wanted to talk about the VW experience, because that's been really intriguing this week, hasn't it?
Yeah,
lots and lots of pundits saying, "Oh, this is the end of VW. This is terrible. This is awful." And yet, everybody you talk to who's loved VW from the day they had a Beetle says, "Actually, it's not going to make any difference to me. I like the cars."
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, really, very much true. I think it's more the public perception that VW are having to deal with of the business and its ethics, rather than the actual products, because people love the product, like you say. There will be some people that have been upset by what's happened and perhaps won't necessarily be rushing to replace their car with another VW, but by and large,
of course now it's spreading to Audi as well, isn't it? Because it's, you know, they're all on the same platform, so, you know, you can see it going through, you know, quite a large range of vehicles. But Anne, I think you're right. You know, it's like, it is this thing. They've come out, they've been very open about it, and they've said, yeah, we messed up, etc. Is it going to stop people buying VWs? Don't think so. Really, not in the long term.
I don't think it will. You know, it will affect the chart and stuff. I don't think it will really affect sales all that much. And I think they've got a great opportunity now to turn it all around and really build on that customer loyalty. You know, I can see TV adverts where they're interviewing people who love VW and just keep saying that. Have a whole Bible.
Yeah, very much so. Very much. And the great thing is that it came from within, didn't it? Rather than it being a press sort of scandal or anything like that.
Yeah.
They made sure that they released the story so they could then control the way in which the message went out after that. And believe you me, a business of that size will have had a team working hard on this for a long time before they let anything go public. So that they'll have done all their due diligence and made sure that they know just how it's going to go and what they need to do to keep control of it. So yeah, I think it's
that's actually quite a good point, because I was thinking earlier about the exposure and the kind of vulnerability that really big brands can have in the social arena. When you're talking about an SME or a startup who is out there, if you're talking about the likes of VW, which is probably, I don't know, are they the biggest car manufacturer in the world?
One of them,
in terms of all of the platforms they manufacture. There's a vulnerability there. If something leaks on social media, they can't, they have to just manage it. And it can be something as big as this. So it's kind of like all of a sudden, all of that marketing impetus, all of that kind of trust value, all of that brand stuff, all of a sudden comes into question just by something being pushed out on social media. So it's, it's quite a vulnerable thing for kind of larger brands but they have people to manage it. So, and at the end of the day, they also have brand loyalty, which works in their favor in this case, is what we've just been talking about, where, there's people driving around in VWs all the time. And, that's just the way it is. They're great cars. So.
Exactly. They have an enviable reputation, which will probably see them through this quite well, to be honest. And that's a result of years and years and years of single-minded messaging, really, around quality and delivery all the time. So now when bad things happen, they have that kind of almost like fat, I suppose, to fall back on, really, because it's there. It's in people's psyche, really, isn't it? Around that brand, you can't ignore it.
I guess it comes back to the old saying, isn't it, that brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, and what people are saying about VW is, I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a VW Polo, and it's the best car I've ever owned. It was 10 years old, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Yeah. It was, it was the best car ever. So.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be fascinating.
There's an awful lot of stuff. I mean, you mentioned the customer experience, the brand, and I love your analogy, Nick, of the footpath that people make and the footpath that the council think they should take, and that's kind of borne out, isn't it, by the research that shows that most people don't believe the claims a brand makes for itself, but they believe what their friends say about it.
Yeah.
And again, coming back to the whole social media thing, people are going out and asking their friends, their groups of friends, for recommendations, and they believe that much more.
The buying decision isn't really driven by the company or the brand anymore. It's driven by what people say about the brand or the product or the service or whatever. The first thing you do when you're looking to buy something is go onto Amazon and look at the reviews. What's the experience of the people, because that's where you kind of dig under that kind of that current of kind of buy this. But obviously brands are getting more okay with that, and social media gives them a chance to tap into that experience and kind of communicate a bit more. But it's basically you look at the reviews. And
is this what you guys are hoping to achieve with your business directory? That you establish this kind of level of trust through a peer group.
I think. Well, I would say so. So the one of the two of the cool things is, one's openness, and involved in that is trust. So it's a very trust-based scenario. So and
I think as well, within sort of the business world, there's a real gap there in terms of there's plenty of these platforms that purport to be a good sort of resource, but it's all funded by upfront fees. So and the actual due diligence that's behind it seems non-existent in some instances. So yes, that's our thinking, and that's where we're coming from in terms of giving something that's impartial and honest. Because I believe, and I think we're all on the same page here, is that today more than anything, any brand, it's about transparency and integrity around what you're doing. So there's none of this kind of hiding and behind smoky mirrors, and all the other different descriptions that have been used along the way. So I think
it's how we've all become connected, isn't it? You guys were both introduced to me by people that I already know and trust.
Yeah. So that the whole networking ethos is one of the main kind of things it's built around. Is that you network and you connect with people, you talk to people, and you gain a relationship and a trust thing. Yeah, again, and that's perfectly right. That's how we've all met. So that's one of the main pillars that underpins this directory that we're going to launch.
So I also think how did this play into the notion of a personal brand? I know we started off talking about the big brands, the brand that we recognise on logos and high streets and all that kind of stuff. But for most of the businesses that I'm connected with, certainly, it is about the person who runs the business. They are the brand. And trying to get that across to people, it's a bit ephemeral sometimes. So what recommendations have you got for that?
Be honest about who you are. That's the biggest thing. And there will be certain people that don't like elements about what you are, and there's nothing you can do about that. Just get past that fact, because if you're trying to be everything to everybody, you're setting yourself up for a fall. I'm afraid it's just not going to happen. As much as everyone in the world would like to think it's all going to be harmonious and everyone will like you and you'll want to get along, there will be differences of opinion. There will be other things that just don't gel, and concentrate on the things that you do connect with and the things that you're comfortable with, I would say, first and foremost. What do you think, Nick?
Give me lots of claps.
Yeah, lots of claps. I think the key here is that we've changed in the way we do business. So we've got big corporate companies, we've got SMEs, but we've also got a stream of people, or small groups of people, which is what I do, that want to do business, want to be entrepreneurs, want to do business and provide services and products. So that's a bit of a change from the kind of logo on the street type business where you are now a person. I remember, Anne, when we first talked on Twitter and you said, "Where's your face? I can't see you. I can't see you because I want to talk to you." And I said, "Right, okay, let me sort that out. I'll go and start my own Twitter account," because I was tweeting as Cambridge Web Marketing. And then, that's the thing. It's a personal thing, and that's the networking kind of reinforces that. You're meeting people that are behind these ideas and these concepts that they have. So I think that's a bit of a chat. Well, it's been happening for a long time, but I think even more so now. It seems to be gaining a lot of momentum.
The other thing that I would just add is that I think people need to realise or be realistic about where they fit into the business world. If they're a small business, what are the types of businesses that they are looking to connect with? Being realistic, are they operating at an incredibly high end, and very, very good if they are, and they need to make sure they're talking to the right people. Equally, if it's much more mass market, then they need to make sure that that's where they're going with their messages and the people that they're talking to. So it comes back to understanding your customers, and what journey you're going to go on as part of that relationship, where it's going to go, where it could possibly go. And keeping an open mind, I think, is another really, really important thing that lots of small businesses need to do, because all too often we're all guilty of it. We want things to fall into a groove so that we can kind of run with them and say, "Oh, we know what this is and how it's going to go." But some of the best relationships, they deviate a bit, and they challenge you in different ways at different times, and it's all about how you respond to that builds the sort of brand and you as a point of authority within that relationship as you go forward, I would say.
There's a perceptual graph of success, and it goes like this, right? Well, that's not success. Success is this.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes all over the place. It's not this. It's not a lovely curvy graph. It's this. That's what it is.
Yeah, I totally agree, Nick. Yeah. And as I said earlier, you'll never please all the people all the time. No. So,
No, I do absolutely agree with that. In fact, that came up this morning in the Blab that I was having with Ed Goodman. And I forget what we were talking about. Oh, we were talking about pop-ups on websites. And that polarized the audience completely. You know, some people saying it really, really works, other people saying it's crap, don't do it. And somebody said, you know, it really depends on how you want your brand to appear to other people, you know, and the kind of people that you want to attract. And if the kind of people you want to attract are the people that respond to pop-ups, then that's great. And if it's not, don't use them.
Exactly. You know, I know none of us like the ambulance chasers of this world, but there's good reason that they do all of these paid for banner ads everywhere and all the pop-ups and other such things. It's because it works.
Yeah.
You know,
you must have seen that really, really, really trashy looking website for cars. I think it's a company in the Midlands run by a Chinese woman. And, you know, it's got stars everywhere and videos playing and this and that. And it looks really, really trashy. But her turnover is something like, you know, it's in the millions every month of car leasing. And she plays absolutely into the audience that she wants. And by every standard of web design, people go, it's awful. But it really works.
But she understands her customers and she knows what the journey is and where to go with them and things like that. Yeah. And that's the key to it. You know, you can't really call it for being right or wrong because it's connecting. So, you know, that's the key thing, really.
Yeah.
I would say it's whatever works, and that's where it comes back to keeping an open mind. You know, I think we're all guilty sometimes of thinking, oh well, we need to look premium, we need to look prestige and all these other different things. Well, not necessarily. You know, it depends on your audience. It depends what they're looking for. What is it that's going to set you out apart from everybody else within that marketplace? Because there could be 50 other companies that are all saying exactly the same thing. Well, you need a point of difference at the end of the day, and you know that isn't always necessarily going to be a point of difference that's sort of elevated. It could be more of a side sort of step, really, into to separate yourself with ethics and lots of different things around that as well.
The education brand that I talked about earlier, we had two sides to it. One was school planners, one was yearbooks. So obviously the yearbooks, we wanted to kind of appeal to the kids. Yeah, we wanted to get them involved and on board with the whole product. With the planners, we wanted to get the teachers involved. So there you've got a totally schismed thing. You've got the teachers and the pupils, the kids that were in school. So it's quite fun. Even now, when you look at the sites, and I can put the links up or whatever, you've got school planners and you've got yearbooks, and they're totally different.
Yeah.
Same company, different messaging, different product, all different. Aimed at a different market. And they're kind of the planner one is kind of very clean, very kind of message based, very sort of. Goes into a lot of the detail about the stuff, which is teachers, they want to see that stuff. The kids, it's just bling, 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 but done in a very tasteful way. And it worked. It worked. We made that decision from a very early point, and it really did work. So that's kind of a good analogy, if you like, of where you take the same thing, the same company offering products to two different groups of customers at the end of the day. So
oh gosh, yeah, no, I mean that they are the most challenging ones. One of the biggest challenges that I think I've ever done was working with the police and the emergency services on some anti-speeding messages, and it's just such an unpopular subject in the first place. But then of course it's got to resonate with so many different people on different levels, and that was really fantastic sort of learning journey.
Because there was a whole thing around that where they were placing wrecked cars in kind of ditches or on verges of grass, saying "kill your speed" or stuff like that. Were you involved in any of that? Because that was like you see a car that's just obviously been involved in a crash. They've dumped it somewhere and put this big sticker on it saying "kill your speed." And I just thought, I drove past one. I can't remember where it was, but I just thought that's really effective.
We did do a lot of kind of public events around that sort of thing. It's interesting the kind of the feedback that you get around showing disaster, shall we say, because in your sort of key target audience, which is the younger drivers, the recently qualified, they still think that they're Mr. Invincible, come whatever you show them. So the more horrific it is in lots of ways, the more that kind of like raises the bar in terms of, oh well, right, I think I can go a bit faster, do a bit more. So,
yes, of course,
very much so. So, and then you've got the other people who are some sort of village warden who are totally speed adverse, and anything like that is just, it scares the living daylights out of them.
It's very shocking.
Striking the balance on that kind of messaging, but making sure that it actually does resonate and get home to the people that you're talking to. Yeah, it's a really kind of complex, multifaceted thing.
So
when you have those stuff.
Talking about messages home, have you done any investigation into all the ad blocking that's going on now? The new iPhone's got ad blocking, and a lot of sites are really suffering because of that. Their messages, their advertising or brand messages are just not getting through. So any thoughts?
Personally, I haven't. From my side, I suppose I'm quite fortunate in that the sort of ads that I've been involved with generating tend not to be those types that come over and try to take over your screen. So if I'm doing campaigns with clients, we'll be placing ads in places where there's already some relevance there. So if they've got an interest in food or gardening or whatever, then we'll look at sites where there's ad opportunities, but not kind of overtly in your face, things like what you've just described, sort of takeovers, because I personally think that does a lot more damage than anything, because you're just generally frustrated because the site's not working and you're being broadcast at and you can't get out of it in a lot of instances. So I think it's something that will go pretty much as quickly as it's come, and the reason that all the browsers are changing and the iPhone and everything like that is purely because of customer demand. So everybody's saying, I hate this isn't what I want. So as a kind of guiding thing, I've guided clients away from using those. Nick, anything from you?
Well, I would say, obviously we're primarily kind of involved in AdWords, which is very targeted from a query-based kind of thing. We also do some Facebook stuff, which is more demographic. I think the kind of intrusive advertising, which is probably the stuff you want to block, which may not even be relevant. And I kind of was a bit confused when Twitter introduced their kind of timeline advertising, where you would have a client's timeline, we would build this kind of momentum on stuff, and all of a sudden Twitter introduces this ad that appears 2 or 3 posts down. I found that very kind of disturbing, kind of counterintuitive. But ad blocking, some people just want to get rid of it. They want to take it out. But apparently, I saw a story. I'm not quite sure who it was from, but apparently now some platform is going to be charging advertisers if their ads are blocked, which means it's kind of that's a pretty serious thing, where it's like, well, we're just going to charge you anyway because you're blocking the ad, but we're just going to pretend you showed it anyway, and therefore there's a cost involved there.
The Google thing though, Nick, about AdWords, because with Google, the more relevant your ad is to the product that you're selling, and the less it costs you per click. So it's kind of playing into that same arena, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you have a look at Google AdWords, okay, the way Google AdWords works is someone goes to Google, right? That's their intent initially. They're going to Google, so they want to do a search for something. They search for something, and depending on their query, on the intent of their query, is it a question? Is it, I want to buy an iPhone, I want to find out what an iPhone 6S is like? They will then get presented with obviously the organic results and also the ads at the very top and on the right hand side. So that is a very kind of different experience from if you are looking at Facebook ads, where they're very demographic based. So you kind of go onto Facebook, you choose the people you want to target, but those people are not performing a search to buy something or they're interested in something. They might just be on a page, but then these ads will appear, or they'll be disruptive and they'll appear in the content they're looking at. So Google has it cornered at the end of the day. They're the ones that have mastered the search, and the way they kind of present the results with the AdWords side of things, we find AdWords much more effective than any other search platform ever. And of course, on the flip side of that, you've got the remarketing and retargeting side, which means if someone goes on to Google and they search for, you know, I want to buy an iPhone, okay, they do that. They might look at a couple of sites and they go off to some other random site. All of a sudden, they'll be injected into various parts of that page, iPhone, you know, blah, 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 price. So that's remarketing and retargeting, where ads are then pushed into the pages, the subsequent pages that someone might look at. So it's in a very effective ad platform, much more effective, I think, than Facebook or any other.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would agree. I actually think the retargeting thing has a lot of value, to be honest, as well, to the end user, because it's something that you've already expressed an interest in, and then Google's using cookies to track your movements thereafter and making sure when you visit a site, if there is a banner ad running, it's at least something that you've shown an interest in, as opposed to something where you arrive at a page.
There's an intent and an interest. There's an implied interest. With Facebook's implied interest, which may or may not be right. But with Google, yes, you have said, I want to buy an iPhone. So they're going to chase you all the way down the alleyway. You know what I mean? It's a given to them. You're a hot lead. So, you know, that's where you're going to go.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a problem with that. I think it's more when you come to pages and it's just complete page takeover, or you've got to watch 2 or 3 seconds. Because I think the one that you're referring to, Anne, is Snapchat, where they're charging you whether the people view the full ad or not. I think the opt-out is at 3 seconds on Snapchat at the minute. And because that's coming fast on the heels of Facebook and Twitter in terms of its prominence. There was a lot of stuff in the press just over a week ago about Snapchat and the whole kind of monetization and the advertising that they're going to do on the back of that. Gosh, I mean, it's like everything. As long as it's relevant to how you're using the app, then I don't think people will feel so, peed off by it, quite frankly.
I think there's still a bit of muddy water where all this programmatic advertising is still trying to kind of find its feet, where making it work and making it really, really kind of effective from A to B. Someone's at A, they're going to B, make it work. One of the other sites that really, really annoys me, because I love the content, is Mashable. Right, I get emails from Mashable every day, and the stuff they write about and they curate, I love. And I click on it, and I go to this page, and it takes about 10 minutes to load. No wonder, because it's got about 1,000 requests from all different things, and I just end up closing the page. It's so annoying, because I love the stuff they do. I love the stuff they talk about. They talk about some methods.
So a really interesting thing just earlier today, when you get a text ad on your phone and it says, if you want these to stop, text whatever it is.
Oh,
apparently, Swinton Insurance, if you text stop, Swinton Insurance get money for your text from the...
We need to expose that.
There we go.
Oh, it's already been done. Yeah. It came through the money expert. And so they're blowing this wide open. But I mean, what a way to treat any customer or potential customer. You don't want our ads, so we're going to take money off you anyway.
Yeah.
Just throw in the coin on the other side about all this to do with sites. One of the sites that I love is Forbes, and you cannot ever visit Forbes without getting ads. In fact, you don't even arrive at the site without you've had to watch 5 seconds of an ad. And that just shows the power of the brand in some instances. People know that the quality is there, in the same way that Nick's talking about Mashable. You know that the quality is there, so you actually sometimes put up with it. But
do you think this is going to change the way, I mean, say the local papers, Cambridge News, that's a shocking site. It's absolutely dreadful. But is it going to change the way that we get free news if they can't have adverts on their site that work?
I think you'll find that they'll just they'll do associated media in other ways. I think that it's going to have to be less in your face, but I still think that they'll sell advertising packages around key pieces of content, because that's their only sort of revenue stream now. How else are they going to survive?
Yeah, I do wonder how it's going to impact, because an awful lot of small businesses do use these kinds of platforms to gain brand awareness. That's what they say they're using it for. Whether it actually works or not.
CBD, here we go. That's what it's for. It's going to be a non-advertised, non-paid for, etc. But we want to include as many of the best businesses as possible. So
how do you guys go ahead with this? How are you going to advise your clients to get their brand out there? Are we back to billboards?
It depends on what the business is, doesn't it? Everyone's going to be slightly different. The key thing is understanding where your customers are and when's a good time to talk to them. So depending on the business, but I think if anything, there's probably more of a reason to stay away from doing everything digitally now, because people are getting sick to death of it. So I know with the stuff that I do personally for my business, I do quite a lot of offline stuff, and it's great because it tends to actually open real conversations with people. I send physical things through the post, then follow it up with a phone call or an email, and you actually have a real chat with someone at the other end, whether they actually are interested in. Yeah, proper old school. Whether they're interested in your product at that time or not, you actually have real dialogue with a person. Email and all the other things. It's all too easy to just, and it's another one of those, and you don't really kind of interact with it too much. So I think it depends on the product, doesn't it, at the end of the day, and who your customers are. But knowing that and knowing, the whole way in which they're going to interact with your brand and the journey that you're going to go on together, that's the key thing. Awareness is always going to be great, and social and digital is fantastic for that, without a doubt. What do you reckon, Nick?
Well, I just posted a link on there, and it's a link to a blog post that I wrote for our site, and it's about this thing called the halo of activity. And what I call the halo is where you have your brand here, and the halo is all the stuff you do around it. Now, depending on what your resolution point is, there might be 2 or 3 things around here. The deeper you go into it and the more you look into it, more things will appear. So it's a kind of a non-exhaustive list of stuff you can do. But it's like online, offline, brand recognition, SERPs nominations, social interaction, communication, reviews, profiles, etc. So a lot of the big brands kind of have some of that done already, because they've been around, so they've done a lot of the offline stuff. Smaller startups and SMEs have to kind of start from the ground up. So one of the big drives I want to do with this directory is have a blog and also have a resource section, which will be completely open. You don't have to have a login or anything like that. You don't have to pay money to get this information. I want key influence to write stuff and make stuff available on that site. It doesn't have to be exclusive. But it's just to help to answer the questions, like Blab's doing, like we're doing now. We're talking about stuff that's really valuable for, startups and SMEs. The basis of that kind of stuff, I'm hoping to kind of turn into a book at some point. Maybe not. But I think that's one of the other things that will be really important for this business directory. It'll be really advisory and really helpful. And give people a kind of a heads up to the stuff they need to be thinking about, the stuff that will help them
build. Just scan through that post, Nick, because it's really some good stuff on there.
I think just going back to CBD, I think as well it's about creating community. Also often, particularly in the SME world, people think that they sort of exist in isolation and, they've got a business doing this. Well, oh gosh, I can't possibly be talking to my competitors and all the rest of it. Well, you should be talking to your competitors, because you don't know what learning there is to be got. You don't know what collaboration there could be. There's all manner of different things. And
that was one of our original keywords, wasn't it? Our kind of key phrases that we talked about when we first talked about this whole idea was community. We saw it as a community, not as a paid for thing or a done this or a done that and an ad based thing. you know, I've go on.
Collaboration, I think, is the other thing. You know, the collaboration can come from many, many different areas. Just it doesn't have to be immediately obvious that there's a instant connection there. The one thing, you know, that you should never sort of do is underestimate who people know and what influence they have in different areas. You know, what are their interests outside of business that you know that might actually be of interest to your business. You know, it's one of those things that I think, you know, our ethos was very much about building a sense of community, a central reference point where people could go and feel confident that they were going to get a sort of a no holds barred real review about that business, because
it's kind of not about holding people off into a corner because there could be a revenue opportunity there. It's about bringing everyone into the light and saying, look, we're all here. Let's talk to each other. It's kind of an online networking ethos. Let's talk to each other. You know, there's no kind of lead generation thing developed by this site. Businesses talk to each other because they've seen a business on the site and they get in contact with them. It's not like, well, if you got in contact with them, make sure you mention us. It's totally open. It's a totally open platform.
I think it's something that's desperately needed within SME world, particularly, well, across the board, to be honest. But SMEs are going to benefit most from it, I think, in the first instance. We just need to get a few more people on board and get the ball rolling.
Well, no, Anne's recommended a couple of people. I think I've got probably 10 or 15 businesses in the bag that want to be on there. So it's get to that next step.
Yeah, I think we've got enough to get.
The plan is by the time. Sorry.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to look once you really open it up, and you know, we can see.
So by the time I give the talk in the Camborne Business Networking in November, we'll have everything in place. We'll have the kind of the existing businesses in there, so that'll be a real good kind of launch pad to kind of give it a say. Right, this is it.
Yeah, I'm sure once people see who's in there and how it's working, you'll get a lot more people. It's just getting that first lot seeded in, isn't it?
Definitely. There's been a lot of interest. A lot of people are asking questions. The biggest questions always seem to be whether they're going to be good enough to qualify for it.
I like that question. That's perfect. That perfectly positions where we want to be. They've got the message.
Yeah, no, it's great. That
in fact, John Torrens sent me an email and said, "Do I qualify?" or something to that effect, which is coming from him. Just it's perfect. I might have to put that as a testimonial on the site in big quotes across the top.
Definitely. So. Listen, guys, I'm going to have to go because I've got to make another call. So it's been nice talking to you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for joining, Zam.
See you again another time.
All right. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, the CBD thing is really interesting. I'm looking forward to that. And for people outside of Cambridge who might be actually listening to this, it's the Cambridge Business Directory that myself and Nick are involved with setting up in response to things that we've seen while we've been out networking and just our general frustration around the various different paid-for platforms that there are out there that all have ulterior motives around what they're offering in terms of information. So we've decided to go at it from the other way, and we're not looking to monetize it. We're looking to create a quality sort of sense checkpoint for anybody that's looking to establish business connections with other businesses in and around the Cambridge area. So
perfectly put, Andy. Perfectly put.
Thank you.
Can you write that down now, please?
I was going to say, we'll have to listen back to that on the Blab, won't we? Because anyone would think I'd been sort of scripting that, but it's all just.
That was good. It just rolled. It was brilliant.
That's because we've been working on it so hard for the last however many weeks. That must be what it is. You see, it's become kind of second nature. Yeah. I think it fits really well with what we're talking about actually this afternoon, because particularly for people when they're starting out, it's so important that they understand the customers and at what point they're going to come to the brand and what their expectations are going to be of that brand experience. I know over the years, the various different agencies and offices I've worked in, I was always kind of flabbergasted at the way that people even answered the phone. because the main line in, you just get people who are just picking up the phone and going, yeah, or hello.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean,
like, you know, that is the absolute basics of running a business.
This education company I was talking about earlier. If I was in the sales office, I mean, my office was kind of in another building, which was just over the way. But if I was in the sales office or whatever, if there's a phone ringing and no one was answering, I'd pick it up.
Yeah.
And you kind of go into sales mode and just give the you know, the gab.
Yep.
And take the information and say, I'll get that person to call you back. And
yeah,
it's just like it's like a Swiss Army knife. It's you just have to do that. And as a solo entrepreneur, you have to do that so much more.
Oh gosh, yeah. And those first touch points, they set the tone for everything going forward. You know, it just used to amaze me sometimes, the fact that either people would ignore the phone, like you've just said, or if they did answer it, the level at which they would answer it was just so bad and said so many of the wrong things about that business as a first sort of touch. It was incredible. And, you know, and so it goes on today, as we've said earlier, about the way in which social's managed. There's a lot of times when social is managed externally very badly. And there's also ways when people try to do it robotically, which translates.
The whole social thing is something I think we need to have a separate blab about, because that's you know, I know we've had discussions and emails about it, and it's you know.
Yeah, I could be getting quite a reputation on here, Nick. A lot of my blabs seem to be around social and why it's not working.
Fair enough. Well, we can have another one, you know, because I think we need to. From my experience of social, from years and years ago up to the present day, and how it's kind of changed and, you know, doing its own thing. But what the key is that social isn't the answer to your kind of business success questions. It's just one of those parts of the halo that will come together and build your brand. But it's just one little aspect, actually.
Totally agree. You know. Totally agree. And it's I think
it's not your stadium.
I think what's nice though about social now is I think we're getting to a tipping point. I think where the noise levels are so high, people are getting fed up, the threshold's been reached, that there's going to have to be almost like a reset, really, and people are going to have to change how they're doing it, particularly brand comms, because you know it's just so much, and there's just it's got such a bad sort of rep now, really, and a lot of it, you know, you look at a lot of Twitter feeds, my word, they are just awash with it. It seems to be
social isn't now the kind of the anchor point to which everyone judges a brand. It's just one of those things that goes into the kind of aggregate decision or perception of a brand. So it's not.
It can be really useful.
It's not the be all and end all.
It can be really useful. It's a great way of people kind of sense checking what your customer service levels are like, you know, and things like that. I've got clients that have fantastic relationships and have nurtured some really good relationships with customers through social, because it's very quick and easy for people to give feedback, both positive and negative to that point, you know. And it's again, as we said earlier, negative feedback is equally useful, and it's all
that's something I meant to mention earlier when we were talking about that whole kind of dynamic, is that if someone gives you positive feedback, respond and thank them for that. Don't just let it linger in the kind of the ether. For instance, I'll give you an example. I was travelling back from Haverhill to Cambridge last week on a stagecoach bus, and normal journey. I've done it many times before. I travel on buses a lot. And on this particular journey, just past Linton on the main road from Haverhill to Cambridge, someone decided to pull out in front of the bus in a car, a very small car. How the driver avoided a massive accident, I don't know.
Wow.
But I decided that I would put something out on Facebook and also on Twitter. I then contacted Stagecoach East, who are the kind of the controlling thing. The upshot of that is today, I was assured by them that they would pass those comments on to the driver, because he avoided a big kind of thing, because anyone in the car would have been killed. It was a small car. We were on the bus. There was loads of people on the bus, etc. So that shows you the power of social media in its immediacy, and being able to send a message, convey a message, and for that message to be conveyed to the person that's relevant. So
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's a really good example of it doing some good comms for a good cause as well.
And that's what I'm saying. If you get good reviews, respond to them.
Yeah.
You get good feedback, respond to it, because you should appreciate all of that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, it's a great thing to put that out there and say, thanks for this, love that. And it actually shows other customers that might not be on board yet that you've got respect for the people you're doing business with. You want relationships, you want to develop it, you want to nurture it. And yeah, I think within the sort of bigger business world, I think that's where they're really struggling because of the size of some businesses. The difficulty that they will have of kind of connecting with people on a one-to-one level in a proper way, because they constantly seem to think that they can automate it. I love seeing all these articles that are on LinkedIn and Twitter and everything about how robots are going to do this and robots are going to do that. And
it's been on Sky News, isn't it? It's been a big push on Sky as well. It's just like, what's going on here?
And it's just hilarious because at the end of the day, we're people. We're not robots, and we spot the difference. So we want a relationship with real people. We want to connect with a real brand in those ways. And there isn't a robot at the moment that can do that. And for the foreseeable future, I don't think there will be, because it requires you to call upon a plethora of different soft skill sets. And read a situation in only a way that another human being can do.
Yeah.
To understand the nuances of a conversation, not necessarily just jump in there, wham bam, oh yeah, we can sort this type of thing. So it's fascinating, I think, and that's probably worthy of a blab.
Yes,
at some point.
Yeah, happy to pitch in on that one, mate. No problem.
Well, we've been on very nearly the hour, and I'm inclined to sort of wrap things up, I think, at this point, unless there's anybody.
I think I won the claps on that one, didn't I?
You did. Well done, that man.
Hey.